Hello ladies and gentlemen, this is Toasted Synapse, bringing you an all-inclusive tutorial on everything you need to know for streaming, recording and editing videos for YouTube, for Twitch, for whatever you want. I want an all-inclusive tutorial for all of these things, and in the description below you will find a sort of like table of contents for the time in the video where I start talking about editing or recording. We'll start with streaming for now, but if you want to skip to those moments, I have included timestamps in the description if you're just interested in one aspect. So, we're gonna start with streaming. This goes both for YouTube streaming or for Twitch streaming. What I use is open broadcast software. As you can see, I have it open right now. First of all, before we get into anything, maybe you were wondering what do I use to record right now my tutorial. I'm using Camtasia, and it's a pretty cool program. It's primarily used for making tutorials like this one. It's not really used for making gameplay videos. What's important to note is that you can also do tutorials with OBS, and it's pretty easy if you don't want to install an additional software. If you don't want to pay for an additional software, you can use OBS no problem for doing tutorials. The reason I'm not using OBS right now for doing tutorials is because I have to have it open to show you guys, so I needed another program so that I will have my OBS free and I can actually use it. Please take note what OBS you open, because when you install OBS you will get both 32-bit and 62-bit on your computer. If you type, open broadcast software, you get both of them. You also get a shortcut on your desktop. I don't know if that shortcut is for the 64-bit or the 32-bit, but I guess people would like to run the 64-bit because, you know, modern ages and modern computers. So make a shortcut for 64-bit. It will also say in the title of the window for OBS. Make sure you're running 64-bit. That's basically just you know, a tiny warning from me. Okay, so let's start by saying that OBS is free. It is open source. The community is working on it, and you can download it simply from their website. And this is how it greets you, except you won't have all of these scenes that I have set up here. You will just have one. So if we right click here and add a new scene, you will just have one scene, this one scene here, and 0 sources. Now, what is this? First of all, you interact by right clicking, and if you right click on something, you will have everything you need to know about that scene or that source. You just need to right click. Let's create another scene. And we'll play around with these, so you know, first of all, before going into settings, you know first of all what this entails. This also goes for recording, so you need to know these things for OBS even if you want to stream or record. Scene 1. We right click on sources and add a source. We'll add if we add monitor capture, I'll show you monitor 1, it's gonna add this monitor, and in order for you to see exactly what you're adding and what you're moving and what you're doing, you have to click preview stream. Now it's added this monitor, and obviously this monitor has OBS, so it will add OBS into OBS into OBSception, as you can see. But this is monitor capture. It captures your desktop. You know how that works. It's not a big problem. Now I'm also going to open Hearthstone in the background so you can see how you can record your games and what's the difference between window capture and recording actual games, as we will get to see. Now, I've opened Hearthstone, and as you can see, it captures my desktop, including Hearthstone in the background, because Hearthstone is set in windowed mode. If it would be in full screen mode, some games are going to show you a black screen, and you don't want that. Now, how do you work around that? Well, you right click and add a game capture. This is what you need. You need a game capture And when you add it, it will ask you what application to link it to. And you will want to link it to Hearthstone. And you press OK. Now you have your game capture here. You also have your monitor capture. The reason the monitor capture is not visible is because it sources in OBS work like layers. So game capture is above monitor capture. If you deselect game capture, just like deselecting a layer in Photoshop, you basically mute it or you hide it and you can see what's underneath. And this is your basic setup. If you don't want any logos or any webcams or anything special from OBS, you can basically create one scene with monitoring game capture. And if you want monitor capture, you leave monitor capture on. If you want game capture, you de-tick monitor capture and tick game capture. And this is your game capture. And as you can see, the window for OBS is not here because it's not capturing the window for OBS, and neither is my start bar. So the start bar is not being captured. For monitor capture, your start bar will be captured. So that's why I always go for game capture. Now, pretty important to note, game capture here needs to be double clicked, and you need to change the application if you're going to be playing another game. If you're just going to be playing Hearthstone, you don't need to change it. But if you're thinking of starting another game, you need to double click here and pick that game after you launch it, because before you launch it, it won't be in this list. That's basically it. Now, what else can we add? Let's add in scene 2. Let's add, for example, an image, and you can add the slideshow of images. As you saw, you can add a ton of stuff. We'll add this image, which will be like a background image, right? And now we'll add something else. Let's say we'll add a you can add text, and you can play around with text. You can choose the font. All the fonts that are in your font library will be here. Your color, your background opacity. You just have to play with these and see which one you like. Tutorial. You add the text, and the text will be here. Tutorial. Good. Now, how do I move it? Well, you have to click on Edit Scene. This is a toggle button. It's either on or off. If you leave it on, you get the option of moving it and resizing it. And you resize things pretty easily by just dragging from the edges. If you shift and drag, you get the option of resizing them in a not proportional fashion. If you click Alt, you get the option of cropping. So imagine this can be a picture, and you can crop the picture if you want. And that's about it. Alt and Shift, this is what you work with. Okay, we're also going to add a webcam. You pick your camera, you can pick other things here, you can configure them, you can do a ton of stuff. If you have your audio on your webcam, you can configure it from here, you can give it a custom resolution, whatever. I'm gonna get my camera out. And because I'm in edit scene, I can click it and make it smaller. And I want it behind tutorial. Also, I want to crop it because there's empty space here that I'm not using, so I'll click the Alt key and crop this. By the way, if you double click here, you'll also see that you have a chroma key. I'm not using a green screen right now, but this is what you use. You click chroma key and you select this color, and it's going to use the chroma effect. But obviously this is not a green screen, so it doesn't work. Okay, click OK. And if you want this to be, if you want your text to be above your video capture device or your image or anything else, for example, I use an image, which by the way, PNGs work with opacity. So if you have an image that has an alpha channel, you can just put it here. It will recognize the alpha channel. I, for example, have a border. If you saw my streams, I have a border highlighting my webcam, and that has opacity in the middle, obviously, because you have to see my face in that border. And I resized it. I made it pretty okay. Right click, position. You can actually order it. Position, you reset positions, and order, this is what we're doing, control up, or you just click move up and the text will move up and it will be layered over there. Also very important, the control key. If you can see right here, my webcam is snapping, and everything in OBS will snap to corners and stuff like that. If you don't want it to snap, if you just want it really close to the corner but not touching the corner, you hit control key, and when you move it, it won't snap, as you can see. That's basically it. You do this, and then you switch from scene 1, which has my game, to this scene, which has webcam and tutorial, whatever, for some reason. This is useful for, you know, if you're going to the bathroom, for example. I have a pause screen right here. If you're going to the bathroom, you wanna click on this pause screen so that, you know, people don't see you leaving the room and entering the room, whatever. If you have a webcam, or if you have a message. With text, you can also use scroll speed to 23, for example. And it will scroll, it will do this thing. Okay, that's basically it. And yeah, you can resize it with the Alt key. That's basically it for setting up your scene in OBS, either for recording or for streaming again. Now, what is also important here? Well, the microphone audio and the game audio, the desktop audio, these are very important, and you're gonna hear me every now and again reference audio as a very important thing in streaming and YouTube, because it is. People need to hear you, your voice needs to be at an appropriate volume, and your game needs to be at an appropriate volume. The volumes that I usually go here is 70% for my game audio within OBS, and in my game I usually go for 20%. Now, I messed around with these sliders earlier, but I usually go for 20%, or this is kind of like 10 or 15%. You have to play around with them. For example, Heroes of the Storm has 22%. It doesn't matter, 2% doesn't matter that much, but if you want your voice to be heard, so if I click the microphone here, you'll see this is my voice. I'm talking normally. What you're looking to see here is your voice not to be high, not to reach the end when you're talking, and not to be really low, like this one. Yeah, not to be really low over here. And your game volume about the half, about half of your voice. Of course, it depends on a game. If it has high-pitched shooting, exploding things, stuff like that, you maybe even want it lower than that. So this is what I go for streaming. Now, I will return to the audio and how you can get around this and basically create a surefire way that you do not waste your time by recording 1 hour of footage that you can't use. I'm going to tell you how to make separate audio tracks so that in video editing afterwards you can actually set the volume of the audio to your liking. Right? You watch your own video when you're editing it, you don't like that the explosions are too loud. Sure, you just lower the volume in your game and maybe make your the volume of your voice higher. You can do that. Now, before we go to that, we need to look at settings. I'm gonna stop preview right now, and I'm gonna look at settings. This is very important. Now, we're gonna go through all of them, but only 2 are very important. So general, you don't really need to modify anything. This encoding and broadcasting, you definitely do. We'll come back to those, because those are the important ones. Here is where you set your FPS, your resolution. If you want to stream at a different resolution, this is where you do it. Your audio, if you have other audio devices that don't get recognized right here by default. To make, by the way, something default, you just go to recording devices and you click right click and Let's pick another one. Set as default device. This is already a default device, so it doesn't show me set as default device. That's the default. The default in OBS and any other software is the default from your Windows right-click set as default. That's basically it. If it's not set by default for any reason, you basically select it from here. You also have the option of push to talk, but many people don't use that, so we're not gonna get into that. Hotkeys, yeah. Mute, unmute mic, the only ones that, and mute, unmute desktop, the only ones that I have set up. Because, again, when I go to the bathroom, when I pause my stream, I wanna mute my mic and my desktop. Maybe my desktop can remain on, but my mic, I don't want people to hear me opening and closing doors. You can also do that by simply clicking this icon here and it will mute the mic. That's what mute mic means. Yeah, hotkeys advanced. I didn't mess around with these. If you're having problems streaming or recording, or your computer is not up to it, you go to the forums and see what's going on, because you may have to modify this. But default usually works for a lot of people that I talk to. Quick syncing order, not using it. Microphone noise gate and scene switcher. I use microphone noise gate, I don't use scene switcher. I use this for streaming, basically. Again, if I'm not saying anything and if I'm scratching my beard, that there are tiny little sounds that you don't want your viewers to hear, you just go here, enable preview, and what you have to do is, well, the microphone is muted first of all, so let's disable preview, click OK, unmute this, go to settings, microphone noise gate, and enable preview. Now, what you're looking for here is every word that you say should be above those two lines, and when you're not saying anything, like now, should be below those two lines. There you go. And I think these are default. If they're not default, they're pretty good and you should copy them if you intend on using noise gate. This is pretty okay. You mess around with it, you see if you like it. Okay. Two big things, both for recording and for streaming. We're gonna start with streaming. You go to broadcast settings and you choose your mode, either live stream or file output. This is for recording, like the thing says. So you want to live stream. Sure, where do you want to live stream? YouTube, Twitch, you pick from here. The what server on YouTube? The primary server, and on Twitch you actually have many other servers, and if you don't know which one is the closest to you, well, first you can basically check your geography. You can check speedtest.net or any speed test website that lets you click when you test the speed of your internet. It lets you click on a server and you choose a server from Frankfurt, from London, see which one's best for you. But we're gonna get into that. There is something that can help you. It is tedious, but you only have to do it once. So yeah, you choose your server and your stream key. This can be found by your profile, either from your YouTube dashboard or your Twitch dashboard. You just, the URL is twitch.tv/your username/dashboard. If you want to go directly there, that's where you go. And you get your stream key and you paste it here. Be careful not to show this to anybody on the stream, because this is used to upload videos on the stream so they can hijack your stream if they see it. Auto reconnect, all of this is by default selected like this. Automatically save stream to file. This is not ticked automatically. I suggest you do, because the file size is not going to be that big. It's just going to be 2 GB, 4 GB for 1 hour of streaming. And you have a file that you can edit afterwards. I know Twitch and YouTube have their editing devices, their highlights. So you can create highlight from within their site, but you know, that's okay if you want to cut the beginning of your stream and maybe the end of your stream, or if you have a 2-hour stream and you want 4 YouTube videos out of them. You just click the, you select the in and the out of the 4-hour stream again and again and again, and you get multiple videos. Sure, that's fine. But you may want to add something else. You may want to tweak something. There may be a boring thing in the middle of your stream that you want to cut. I suggest getting the file, and I also believe it's higher quality if you get the file on your system. So I suggest, if you can, save the stream to a file on your computer and edit it afterwards. If you have time, if you don't, that's fine. You just use the highlight button on Twitch or the video editing program on software on YouTube. But you generally want the file. Okay, so you've set up Twitch, you set up everything you need to set up here. Yeah, file path, I don't need to tell you what these are. Set them up where you want, and it's gonna give you a warning. Your OBS settings are not optimized. You need to modify some things. Not to worry, you click the optimize button, which I'm not gonna do here because I'll mess up my streaming. You click the optimize button and all of these warnings go away because they will OBS will modify them for you. Okay, I'll click cancel, not to apply that, and go back. Okay, encoding, this is very important. Now, from what I know and from what I saw, YouTube has a higher quality on the videos, about double the quality that Twitch has. And this is why. It accepts higher bit rates, and it also accepts higher bit rates on audio encoding. As you saw here, the warning for Twitch was that you have to lower your audio, which sucks. But YouTube lets you have the high bitrate on the audio, and this is the bitrate I use for YouTube, and the bitrate that I use for Twitch is about 2000, right? So how do you know these? Well, you can go, you know, you can do the old geography thing. You can test near you. You can even use my values, 2000 for Twitch and about 4000 for YouTube. But there's another way, a bit tedious, but you only have to do it once. What you have to do, first of all, click cancel, is download XSplit Broadcaster. This is basically the same thing as OBS, and you can switch scenes from here, as you can see. But one thing that it has that OBS does not have is if you go to broadcast. This is basically why I'm using it. I'm only using it for this feature, and I'm gonna show you guys, and that's basically it. Nothing else. You just install it for this one single feature. You go to Broadcaster after you install it. You add a channel, YouTube or Twitch. I already have my Twitch. After you add the channel, it will get you to a wizard that will basically ask for your credentials, your Twitch, your account, everything. You just have to insert it there. And that's it. This is my Twitch account. And what you're looking for is this button, test bandwidth. And if you click it, 2 things you need to remember from this test. And you need to remember them and use them. And if you change your internet connection, then if you change your internet service provider, then you have to do it again. But if you don't have to do it. So you just remember the values. Now, best target location, EU Amsterdam. I remember this one. And then you remember the kilobytes per second. That will, in 15 seconds, we will find out which is the optimal settings for you to broadcast. Okay, so the calculated average data rate is 2100. So this is what you're going for, like I said. But you want to go below this. So EU Amsterdam and 2100. You close this. You close XSplit and you never open it again because you have your information. You can get your information for YouTube in the same way. You just create a YouTube account in XSplit and you go to testing. So that's 2100, right? 2100. I'm not gonna save it, but you get the point. You set 2100, and when you go to Twitch, you choose, which one was it? Amsterdam, insert your key, click apply, and that's it. That's how you know what your values should be like in OBS. And you remember those values and never change them, unless you change your internet service provider. That's how it works. Okay, recording with OBS. This is, again, very important. Recording. Basically the same thing. You create your scene and your source. We'll actually preview so that you can see. Okay. You set your audio up, you set the in-game audio up, but we'll get to that, where you can make another audio channel that would help you out very much, so that your voice doesn't get blocked by explosions. Or if, for example, you're showcasing a game that has cutscenes and you want for a second the volume of the game to go up and your microphone to go down so that people can hear the cutscene, and when the cutscene is over you want the volumes to return to normal, you can do that in the video editing. I'll talk about that at the end of this tutorial. But if you want to do that, you'll generally want to do that with only with two audio tracks. You can't do that with one audio track, because your voice would be mixed in with the gameplay audio. So, you want to record. Before we get to the audio, let's see, what do you modify? Absolutely nothing, except you don't even have to switch to file output here. You just have to go to encoding and select a higher value, because you're not streaming, you're not using your upload bandwidth to stream. So what you want is a high quality video on your machine. So you probably go somewhere from 12,000. This is for 1080p. If it's just 720p, I guess 10,000 is enough. You have to test it, you have to see if you like it. You do some tests, you record random stuff on your computer with various bit rates, and then you see which one you like. But for me, 1080p, somewhere between 12,000 and 20,000 kilobytes per second. That will get you still a small file compared to the other recording device, DXTory, that I'll talk about later. Still a small file size, so it's about 10 gigabytes for an hour of recording or something like that. It's pretty low, right? I imagine it's being compressed as it's being recorded, so it may take its toll on your processor, but that's why we have the other editing software that runs more smoothly. I don't have problems with this bitrate running Heroes of the Storm, Hearthstone, and simple games like these, but you'll just have to see. So that's basically it. You set your maximum bitrate. You don't have to modify anything here. You leave it on streaming if you want, and yeah, you apply it, and all you have to do is you have to stop preview. This is how you start streaming. Obviously, by start streaming. This is how you start recording. And that's it. And I recommend, even for recording and for streaming, testing is very, very important. What you do, even if you stream and even if you record, you have to press start recording to have a file on your computer. So for example, let me press start recording, and I'm recording right now. Okay, I'm doing something in the game, right? So this is basically a test. Okay, I'm doing something in the game that generates sound. I'm talking over this, and then I go back and press stop recording. Now, I go to the folder, remember, the folder over here, the file path. This is it. And I open this up and listen to it. Start recording, and I'm recording. And I want to listen to this and see if my voice can be heard, if it's normal, if the game doesn't get too intrusive, if it doesn't cut up my audio. That's basically it. That's basically what I'm looking for. I'm doing a test. So I just spent 17 seconds doing a test, and now I can start streaming. I can say, yes, now I can stream. And I'll go to the YouTube dashboard or to the Twitch dashboard and I'll view my stream there. Don't forget to mute your stream while you're streaming, because it will capture your Chrome or your browser's audio. Okay then. So testing, very important. Do it again and again and again with each game. Tweak the audio to your liking, do another test. It doesn't take long, it's nice, and you won't spend 1 hour streaming for nothing or recording for nothing. That's basically it, that's how you use it. And if you just want to use it for recording, yeah, do some tests, record some tests, and when you're ready to record, press start recording, play your game, and that's it. Okay, but if you want 2 audio tracks, well, this is something that can be done when you're recording, not when you're streaming though. So there you go, this is my voice. I've begun basically recording my voice and it will save it to a file. After I do this, I also click start recording. And as you can see, at one end I'm recording my voice and the game, and at the other end I'm recording only my voice. Now, obviously this will interfere with the voice in OBS, with the microphone in OBS. So what you need to do is just keep this on for the first couple of seconds and do something like this. 3, 2, 1, mark. And now mute it. Okay. And from this point onward, in the same file, and we'll actually have this as an example when we get to the editing part, we will have only the game audio from this point forward. And over here, you have only your voice, including the one where I said mark. So you can synchronize with the OBS file. We'll get to that in a second. So when you're done, you just, stop recording. And you stop this one. And you just go to export audio. And we'll put it directly here and tutorial. The option that you go for here is basically the highest option that you can find. Wave, 32-bit, PCM, usually works fine. Yeah, it doesn't have an option. Others have if you want to do it MP3, but do it Wave. It's going to be a big file, but it's just an audio file, so how big can it get? Okay, that's basically it for recording with OBS. We will now move on. We'll close all of these and we'll move on to DXTory. What is DXTory? Well, it's a program that you have to pay for, first of all, but it's a very, very competent program. It creates huge audio files, but we'll get to mess around with them and we'll see, not huge audio files, huge files, but we'll get to mess around with them and see what they do. Well, I'll quickly touch upon DXTory, show you how it works. First window here, you get the target, you see what's getting targeted. Again, it works by the same principle. That's why I have a shortcut over here that I can launch it pretty easily. I first launch the game and then I launch DXTory, and it will automatically link to the game. How do you know if it's being linked to a game? Well, you will get an overlay in the corner of the game. Right now I'm not getting that overlay because I'm recording with Camtasia and it kind of, overrides that, but you're not going to be recording with Camtasia unless you want to do a tutorial of your own. But you'll see this overlay, and when you start recording, the color will change. From green, it will show your FPS and it will change to orange. Okay, again, next tab, where you save your recordings. And you can test your write speed here, your benchmark, by pressing this button. You first choose the file path and then you press this button and it tells you how fast it can write. Then your hotkeys, basically I have it for start stop, and screenshots, yeah, maybe sometimes, but I don't really use them. For start-stop movie capture, it has to be something that isn't like in a key binding within a game. Shift insert, I don't think many games use shift insert for anything, so that's pretty okay. And the buttons are pretty close, you know, shift and insert, I use it with my right hand. Okay, movie. This is the important part here. What codec are you going to be using? By default, I think the DXTory video codec is being used. That creates high quality files. Oh, I think all of them create high quality files. This is what's great about the DXTory. But it also creates a really big video file, and you don't want that. Oh, take note that some of them, like Microsoft Video, for example, for me, messes with the colors. So one codec that I recommend you download from the internet, it's free, it's called Lagarith Lossless Codec. Another one that's good is UT Video Codec, which gets you a bunch of codecs here. But Lagarith is the one I use. I can't find any visual difference or difference in file size between Lagarith and UT, honestly. And over on Lagarith, after you install it, you open up OBS and it will have it here. You have to select it and you have to click the config icon, and from here you will pick the last one, YV12. Use multi-threading if this is not on, and this is basically, you can copy this screen right here to have it the same on your computer. Why the last one? Because honestly there is absolutely no visual difference, and I did this testing. I zoomed in on a bunch of my videos, tested with all of these. There is no visual difference, but the file size gets smaller, and you want a smaller file size for a good quality, and this is an amazing quality. Basically what you see with your eyes is what you get at the end. Take note that big video files, let me actually tell you what that means. From last time I checked, it's about 100 gigabytes for 1 hour of recording. And I have an example here. For example, the last Hearthstone match that session that I recorded is this one. So it's about 1 hour and about 100 gigabytes, as you can see. So be prepared to have, let's say, I don't know, 200 gigabytes of free space on your computer if you want to stream for an hour and a half, you know, something like that. If you want to stream, sorry, if you want to record. Okay, so that's basically it. These are by default, like this one. Clipping is, you know what clipping is. I usually leave it as I see it. Frame rate, you know what this is. Now, file output and direct show output. Basically, you can stream if you want with DXTory, but not in the sense that you can upload to YouTube or to Twitch. What it does is create, if we go to OBS, we can see here, and let's use one of our scenes. Let's actually use the video capture device. We can see if you insert a new video capture device, you have here DXTory Video 1, 2, 3, 4. So you can use it basically as a program that captures a game, sends it to OBS, and then OBS sends it to Twitch. Which, you know, I don't know if you want to do that, because OBS does a nice job of capturing the video for itself, so you don't have to use yet another program to be open in the background. You may want to play around with it. For example, if you click both file output and direct show output, when you're streaming, you're basically capturing the file as well, a raw file, a big file, not a file at the 3900 encoding. You're actually capturing the full file that you can edit afterwards. If you want to play around with these, be my guest, but I usually just go for file output. I don't use it for streaming. These file formats, press AVI, you don't want RAWCAP. RAWCAP creates a gajillion files instead of one video file, and then you have to combine them using the, I don't know, RAWCAP converter over here. These are things that I never use. Video settings, whatever, the raw cap converter. Okay, this is basically the video part of DXTory. You have two more options here. Include mouse cursor. Well, again, you have to test. Depends on games that, you know, depends on the coding of games, because some games have the mouse cursor coded and it gets captured by your capturing device, and some don't because they use the Windows mouse, and the program believes that the Windows mouse is in the background, so it doesn't capture it. So first record, I don't know, 5 seconds of a game, see if your mouse gets recorded. If it doesn't, click this on. If it does, I would recommend clicking this off, because maybe they have a fun little art for, like Hearthstone has a nice little hand there, and some games have the hand, and above the hand they will have the Windows cursor, so you have two cursors being recorded, so you don't want that. You exclude the mouse cursor in that case. Synchronized video FPS. This is one thing that, I mean, I love DXTory again for this reason. I used Fraps before, but now I'm using DXTory for two reasons: the audio one and the how they treat video FPS. So let's say you're playing your game and you have 100 frames per second. Your game is running at 100 frames. You can see this because, like I said, there's an overlay showing you how many frames you have. And when you start, if you have synchronized video FPS, when you start recording, DXTory will try to slow your game down so that you see things like you in your chair, the player. You see things at 30 FPS, and the program is recording those 30 FPS if you have synchronized on. I recommend you take it off, because this will allow you to see things at 100 FPS. If you're playing at 100 FPS, you'll still see at 100 FPS, you'll have good reflexes, but the video at the end will be synchronized, 30 in this case, or 60. They will not be linked together. So the program will do its thing, recording your game to whatever frame rate you set it, but what you see in front of your eyes will still be the native frame rate that you will always get, even without DXTory opened. I recommend this one because when you're watching a video on YouTube, you don't need reflexes because you're generally not playing the game, right? But when you're playing the game, you do need reflexes and high frame rates, so do not have synchronized video FPS on. And then scaling, you know, this is audio, very important. I use two audio devices, and you add them by pressing plus here. You can even use more. If you want to include your friends in Skype, you can add another one and add another device if you have another device. Now, these two devices, what do they do? Well, first device, the first audio track, these are audio tracks. The first audio track will be my speakers, basically the game and the background. And you can use PCM and this one because it's a very high quality and it's very good. And you can choose which speaker you want, whatever you want from here. Okay, I have another audio card from my microphone. And for example, if people are talking to me in Skype, I can put them on a separate channel and put another set of headphones in my ear, and then I can again tweak them by adding the third one for this one. Then I'm gonna go into Skype, and I'm gonna tell Skype to output audio to this device, to these speakers. And basically I have a third audio file that I can mess around with. We're not gonna do that, but I'll have a third audio file that I can mess around with, where I can set my friend's voice in Skype to be equal to me, higher than the game, you know, tweak around and have a perfect pristine quality audio. This is, like I said, very important to me. Audio is very important. And then the second one is obviously my microphone. Same audio, same thing, but it gets put on a separate track. Just like you saw me when I used OBS and Audacity, this works in a similar fashion. We'll get to editing in a part and you will understand better when we do. Screenshots, yeah, go ahead. Advanced, these are not checked. You can force CPU processing, it generally uses the GPU. You can, if you have problems, you can check their forums and see what you can use here. These are basically settings for the program to show the task tray icon next to the clock or whatever. And that's basically it. Okay, well, I've yammered on, yammered and yammered. Now it's time to get to editing, a very important part. And I'll be back in a second after I open my Premiere. Okay, hello and welcome to the quick video editing tutorial. I'm not gonna get into big details. I'm just gonna get into what I use and what I think is would be very useful for you. First of all, I recommend you only use a single project for all your video editing needs. And you can use multiple sequences that you can play around with. Why do I do this? Because basically this is my intro over here and this is my outro. And what I do every time I add the video in the middle, I edit it and leave the intro and the outro. And when I'm done editing it, after I upload it, after I render it, after it's done, I just delete the middle and the settings for the outro and the intro remain the same. So I use the same project again and again and again. It's more efficient to use it in this way. Now, how does my sequence look? Well, you want to go for something like this. You usually find it in the DSLR settings. If you don't have a DSLR setting when you're creating a new sequence, then you can pretty much copy these and see where they fit. This is what I use. You just copy these. You get a sequence that is like this one. If you don't know how, that's a file, new sequence. And there you go, DSLR 30p. As you can see, the frame rate is not 30p exactly, so you can go into settings and adjust it from here to be at 30, maximum bitrate and render quality. If your computer can handle it, great. And you can save your preset and click OK. And that's basically your sequence inside your program. Okay. Let's actually work with the files that we recorded at the beginning of our tutorial, which were in OBS. And also keep an order on things here, you know, click assets, sequences and stuff, create folders so you know where you can find things. Right now it's pretty messy because I finished editing my tutorial, my channel trailer, which you can see if you would like. So let's actually work with the clips from OBS. Which one was it? It was this 1 minute stream rec, it's called. You copy it inside, you drag it over here, right? You can see it has the audio cut out because I told you why, because you would want 2 audio tracks. And then we go and take our audio tracks from where did I put it? Over here, tutorial.wav, you put it here, and what you're looking to find is you can mute these individually. First a couple of seconds and do 3 to 1 mark. This is what you're looking for. 3, 2, 1 mark. Okay. And from over here you're looking at this 3 to 1 mark. 3, right? 2, 1 mark. Good. So you have to put these one above the other. You zoom in with Alt and scroll, and you drag these one over the other. Something like this. So if you hear them together, you won't find any, problems with it. Let's see. 3, 2, 1, mark. Sure, they are pretty accurate. So from this point forward, you won't have my voice because I muted, and I pressed the mute button in OBS after I did my marking. After I did my marking, I muted it, and now my voice is here and the game's audio is here. And if I click play, and from this point onward, in the same file, you can see here that the first track, this one, has the Hearthstone volume in it, and we'll actually have this, and this one will have my voice file. See? You can hear Hearthstone. And if Hearthstone is too loud, if Hearthstone is, you know, not loud enough, you just click on it, go to volume, make it 6 decibels, for example, and it's louder. Let's say my voice is too loud. I put it, well, it's definitely too quiet now, but it doesn't matter. So I'm talking in the background, you can barely hear me. You can see that there's the audio gate that I talked about in, when I messed around with OBS. We'll press Ctrl Z and go back to the second most important thing about audio here, is the preset dynamics gate. Well, it's called dynamics, and I made a preset called dynamics gate. This needs to go on your voice, not on the audio of the game, on your voice actually, and it looks something like this. And if you already have the gating, the noise gate in OBS, you don't really need it over here. If you're not using OBS, if you're using DXTory that does not have an audio gate, a noise gate, you click it from here. What this does is basically, in a few words as possible, it makes your audio, your voice a little more level. Meaning that when you're talking really quietly, it boosts your voice. And when you're really loud, it compresses your voice so that, you know, you're not like really quiet 1 second, then really loud the other second, because that gets annoying to the viewers and you don't want that. So this is basically what Dynamics does. And you can copy the values from here. You can click on them and press and write -12 and press enter. That's how you change the values. And then you have to right click and save the preset for yourself so you can have it in the future. You can't actually hear the difference right here in the same file, and we'll actually have this as an example when we get to the editing part. But as you can see, it never goes beyond -5, which is the default value for YouTube, which is the acceptable value for YouTube. Because one thing that's annoying is when you're seeing multiple videos on YouTube from different people, and either one's too loud, one's too quiet, and you just wish that everybody on YouTube would be at the same volume. Well, doing this basically assures that you're at the same value with the professional standard, let's call it that, on YouTube. Okay, so you basically did your thing, you did this. You don't need the beginning of this. After you link them together, you can right click and group them, and basically you start your video from here because you don't want your viewers to hear you say mark. So you start your video from here, right? They're still grouped. You have to ungroup them. You have to be careful when you drag these left and right. You have to select all of them so you make sure they always are synced. They move as a group. And I'm gonna mute my own audio here because it would be weird for you guys to hear me while I'm explaining about myself. The intro and the outro you can get from, you know, from the web. But basically, what you're working with here is either keyframes. If you want the volume to go up and then down, for example, you put a keyframe here, which is at 0, 0 being the default value. You want it to slowly gradually decrease. And as you can see, it does this. And then you want it to increase. This is, like I said, it's a quick tutorial. I'm not gonna tell you everything about Premiere Pro. The important thing was the audio. And also, if you're using DXTory, pay attention here. You have to use Sony Vegas or a different program or something that extracts the second audio. I know some people get the second audio extracted in Premiere. I don't know why, but it's not a difficult process for me extracting it afterwards. So stay tuned. I'm gonna explain more about keyframes and stuff for a couple of minutes now, and then I'm gonna go to Vegas because it's very important you listen if you wanna use DXTory. Okay, let us actually go to title, new title, and default still this inserts a text on your screen. It will look like this. Text, again, similar to Photoshop, you add opacity, sheen, shadow, whatever. If you want a black screen, for example, you just click on background and you select the color and you don't type any text in. If you just want a black screen, that's how you get a black screen. So I'm just gonna use text as an example here. I put it here, I make it bigger, smaller, whatever. I'm gonna use it as an example of how keyframes work. First of all, you have to have the clock on any keyframe that you need. You want to modify. You have to have the clock ticked. If you don't have the clock ticked, it will stay at the position without moving. To stay at the position that you leave it without creating, you know, you'll see here. See? It moves. And then I move it back. And it shows you how fast it moves. This is the velocity. And so what did I do here? Well, I'll let you see this, because I have two monitors. So look at what's happening, right? Well, this is moving. And then let's say we want to move it back at a high velocity. This is what will happen. Moves left and then right. It basically follows the keyframes. Same with the audio. So I'm showing you easy use of keyframes because these are used in everything. In opacity, if you want something to, we can actually do this. Opacity. We first need to set where it begins fading. So 100%, it begins here. And where it ends with the fade. Let's say when it finishes its movement, it will be 0. So again, let's view it. You're looking down here and it fades to 0. This works everything. If you know the basics of keyframes, if you know how to create an opacity or a volume that goes gradually up and gradually down, then you know how to create positions. This is how you make a text pop from the top of the video and then pop back up in the video. The scale works at the same thing. You can make it like this. You can make it pop up, or you can make it, you know, go back into nothingness from 100 to 0. Boom, and it's gone. See? It's easy. If you know your keyframes, it's easy. You basically have to know how it works. It's like a graph, right? I don't think the graph is pretty... Oh yeah, it's well shown over here if you see. It goes down with the opacity. Okay. That's it. And you actually have a velocity per second if you wanna get technical. That's it. Remember, use dynamics. Really does wonders with your voice. Know how to use keyframes. And of course, you can cut videos. Or let's say this is a boring part and this part begins to be interesting again. You shift delete so that they get pushed back. If you just delete, they don't get pushed back. You have to move them back. And then you can go to transitions. For example, for audio, you press X, you have exponential fade. It goes down and up, so the music doesn't suddenly jump. Then as transitions, you have crossfade. You basically go video transitions, and you see which one you like. Don't put any ugly ones, right? Cross dissolve is pretty okay, I guess, for some. Actually see it, because it doesn't change anything, because it's the same screen in the background, obviously. So that's why cross dissolve is okay. Okay, enough about that, enough about editing. Let's go to how you edit the DXTory video, and then we'll get to rendering settings. Now, you have to open, like I said, Vegas, or a similar program that identifies two audio files, and I'll show you in a sec what I'm saying. My DXTory videos, we have Hearthstone as an AVI clip, the one that I showed you, 1 hour for 100 gigabytes, right? That's the file size you're looking for. You put it here, it will generate the peaks of the audio, and then when you drag it in here, as you can see, you have the video for Hearthstone and the audio for Hearthstone, for the game, but you don't have your own voice. This is because if we open DXTory, the audio for your voice is on a second audio track, right? So you need another track under here. Premiere doesn't do that. Vegas does it for some reason. I don't know why. Maybe for you Premiere will do that. Maybe it's the codec. Maybe you use another software that detects a converter software, or you know, convert video to audio, or other software that you may use that may work. I find that Vegas, which by the way, it's a fully fledged video editing program. If you want to use Vegas instead of Premiere, go ahead. It works just as fine. And what you do here is basically you take the same file and you put it here, and you'll see in a sec what this does. DXTory opened up. This is, if you remember, the two audio files. File 1 is what Premiere detects by default, only the audio of the game, only the audio of Hearthstone, and 2 is the audio of my microphone. So I want both, and that's why I'm using Vegas. Okay, so I dragged Hearthstone into Vegas. It created 2 additional files. You don't have to do anything with these. What's important here is that you get 2 audio files. As you can see, you have the video file and the 2 audio files. Like I said, you can use Vegas for your whole video editing problem, but here all you have to do is mute the, well, basically mute the video and mute the first audio, which you already have in Premiere, and keep your microphone. Then go to File, click Export, click Render As, and you'll get the following options. This is the one I use. Again, you'll see the theme reoccurring. It's the one that you use for, you know, everything in your computer, the one you use when you set up DXTory, the one you use when putting things in your sequence, the one you use for rendering at the end. It's good to use the same thing. So you need this one, the basic one. You click Render, and what I found that's very useful is actually going and saving it next to the DXTory movie. We'll click All Files, and this is the one that I want, but we'll make it Wave. So we'll give it the same name. Then I click Save and click Render, and it's gonna generate the audio file really quick, because it's just an audio file. Then you close. That's basically what you used Vegas for. If you want to use Premiere to edit, you don't have to save it. Now you have the audio file. What you do with it, it's put it next to this one. So you just put it underneath, and as you can see, they are already synced because it's the same file. has to generate its peak levels, but they are synced from the beginning to the end. So you just edit in the same way you edited with the OBS footage. You click, these are the tools here. C is for cut, I recommend you remember these ones, and V is for the selection tool. So you select it, you move it left and right, remember to select all of them. Then you press C, cut everything, remember to cut from top to bottom everything. And then you press V again, so that you can select these three, and Shift delete and delete if you want to move them to the right and not just delete them and leave them in place. Okay, that's basically it. Edit your video. And now the rendering process. Obviously, this is where the video ends. You edit this. You shouldn't delete the one that you are going to edit in the future. You just put it over there. And then you just edit this part by going to this slider over here and put it exactly at the end, depending where you want. And you just keep this in the sequence. When you're done with this one, when you're done rendering, you just delete this and move this in its place, right? Easy. Now, you either press Ctrl M, or I pressed Ctrl M so many times that I don't actually know where the export is. Yes, export media. So what do you do here is, first of all, you create your own preference, so you can go to it each time you want. And it doesn't matter if you're using Vegas or Premiere, you're gonna want about the same values as you see here. First of all, you want H.264, because that's the most flexible and the most used for YouTube. It does really well. It's gonna create an MP4. And then you go to a preset. The closest preset you can find, so you don't have to edit all of these by hand, is the last preset over here. You'll have YouTube something, YouTube HD 1080p 2995. You click on that, and what you want to do is set your frame rate to 30. If you have it 30 set in DXTory or in OBS, set it to 30, so everything has to be the same as when you recorded it. The same to the sequence settings. You go to sequence settings, it has to be the same to what you set over here, so you can work clean and have no problems. Okay, so you set that, you leave this on progressive and square pixels. Profile, I think this is default, if not, set it to high and 4. Render at maximum depth, and there's another one, use maximum render quality. I have them set up. It will take longer, maybe about double, it depends on your computer, but you will see a nice render at the end. So take some time out of your day and render them at maximum, because the viewers will love it. Now, for the encoding setting, one pass is enough. Variable is very good. You can use you know, a constant, but a variable is also pretty good. YouTube is usually for 1080p, usually because YouTube obviously does its own compressing afterwards, usually works with 8 megabytes per second, but I always like to go a little bit higher so that I will be sure. So instead of putting 8 here, I put 10, and then the maximum bitrate is 12. If you want to go for 8, you can go 8 and 10 here. For 720p, you can go 6 and 8 or 8 and 10, so it depends. That's basically it for how you render. The audio has to be, again, the same. Copy these things. The bitrate is actually bigger because, you know, some games may have awesome music that you want to capture at a higher bitrate. Doesn't really matter. It gets a nice quality audio. And then you just export it or queue it, depending on how you like to work. Obviously, you give it a name and a place. This is how you save, by the way, the preset after you modified it. And that's it. These are the tutorials, all of them in one single video. Hope I didn't bore you. I wanted one single video. I didn't want you to click on thousands of little things. Just set it, upload it, and that's basically it. You're done. Go to your next video after you're done with this one. Now, if you don't mind, I'm going to go edit this very tutorial. I know it's a little messy, I know there's a lot of information, but I'm hoping it helps people. And if it does help, please remember to subscribe and share the video. It really helps me out a lot. And if you want to find out more, you know, ask me in the comment section. This has been Toasted Synapse. Thank you for watching. I'm signing out. Bye.